Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. We have two um, blended Scotch whiskies. The first one is aged 3 years, and it was introduced in 1890, and it's called White Horse. And the website claims that Lagavulin is the heart of the White Horse flavor. So it's from Diageo, and it's using Lagavulin single malt Scotch for its flavor. This is Cutty Sark. But this is not just Cutty Sark, it's the Prohibition Edition introduced in 2013 to celebrate the 90th anniversary of the introduction of Cutty Sark whiskey. And then there's a claim that there's this guy who used to sneak whiskey into the United States, and his name was Captain Bill McCoy, and that's where the term "the real McCoy" came from. But a lot of people dispute that. They say that's a cock and bull story. They can't really back it up. But anyway, whatever the case, they have a picture of Bill McCoy, photograph of him. They claim that's where that expression came from. I don't really know. Obviously, I would not know that. Okay. A full flavored, Scotland, full flavored whiskey. Cutty Sark Prohibition is bottled, Prohibition Edition. Prohibition is bottled at 50% alcohol, 100 proof. USA measure. This is a quote unquote small batch blend of the finest single malts and top quality grain whiskeys, hand selected American sherry oak casks, so that's Asian X sherry casks, gives subtle signature flavors of vanilla and spice, whilst the overall flavors and finish are extremely smooth and thrillingly complex. Okay. I found this is a liter bottle too, I might add. I found this liter bottle at Aquista Paces in Covington, Louisiana on United States Highway 190 business route, eastbound. It's right on the main route. You'll see it there. Just follow the sign, US 190. But you got to get on the business route. If you stay on the main, you'll miss it. But it's a loop. So you're not going to have to come back to one. You're not going to have to go back. You just get on business, and it'll come back to 190 if you're traveling east towards Mississippi or west towards Texas. Either way, it doesn't matter. Okay. Nice store. Gourmet groceries, and gourmet whiskeys and all. So they had this small batch. It was on sale for $23.99. Yeah, $23.99. Amazing. You're not going to find it for that price normally, not a liter, no. If you get a regular size bottle, it's going to probably run you about $26. The liter would be significantly more. Don't think it's produced in handles. Introduced in 2013 to celebrate the 90th anniversary of, like I said, Cutty Sark. And these days, it's owned by a company called La Martiniquaise, a French company, La Martiniquaise. It's not owned by the Edrington Group anymore. Cutty Sark probably been sold too many times. Okay, now it's not the only one they have. You can find the regular Cutty Sark. Well, everybody's going to sell that. Pretty much all the liquor stores going to have that. And that's your deal because you can get a handle for $26. The Prohibition Edition, you may have trouble finding that one. Okay, that's not so common. It's a small batch. You might see it around. Now, here's some that you almost certainly are not going to see. Not in the United States, maybe in Scotland. Cutty Sark 12-year age. Hand-selected oak cask. The expression is balanced by complex notes of spice and fruit. Chances of seeing that are basically impossible. I've never seen it. I did see a Cutty Sark specialty once at World of Beverage in 2018 in Georgia, but it was like $250. Cutty Sark 33-year age. Cutty Sark 33. Exquisite and seductive, this highly collectible pack celebrates the 1920s. So they got this Art Deco looking bottle, and it's just going to cost you a fortune, 42% alcohol. Chances are you definitely won't see that one around here. But what if I go to a liquor store today and I see it? I feel funny. But anyway, that's the story on that. So the Lagavulin flavors the White Horse. 3-year age, no age statement. I'm pretty sure it's no age statement. The real McCoy. Cracked black pepper and toffee. This is back when it was still under Edrington Group. But they sold it to, like I said, La Martiniquaise for whatever reason. I guess they got an offer they couldn't refuse. A real hunk of cork, too. It's not that press board cork. It's not rubber. It's real cork. Which I need to moisturize because it'll dry rot. I was opening some wine the other day and it was dry rotted and the cork split in half. Luckily, it didn't all fall into the wine too much, and also it was aggravating, but they will do that. I've had that happen once with bourbon whiskey, once with Scotch, once with brandy, cognac brandy. And so if you don't moisturize the cork, it's going to be tight in there, and it's going to tear or just pulverize. But if you let it get real full, like turn it upside, if it's really old, you might want to let it soak in for maybe an hour. Just hold it while you're watching television or something. And, and then it should come out. Set it back up, and then a few hours later it should come out. But if it's dry rotted, forget it. Okay, now this thing here has a built-in pourer. Going to be nice. Okay. The Cutty Sark, well, it's a little darker, but it's not too much darker, but it is more amber than gold in this one. And the White Horse is more gold than amber. So I'll have to close my eyes. Daylight is starting to filter in, but you see we're getting further and further. Choking on a little bit of that corned beef hash, I think. We're getting further and further away from the June 21st, summer solstice. So that means each day that goes by, it's going to get darker in the morning, and the days will become shorter until we get to December 21st, the winter solstice. And that'll be the shortest day of the year. So pretty soon I'm not going to be able to rely on dawn, bringing in dawn busters. I would be able to if it wasn't daylight savings time, this little pretend time. Like it's 5 something in the morning Central Time, but it's really 4 something. That's why it's dark, because it should be getting daylight at 4:30 something. But we got this little pretend time because we like to pretend in the modern world about things, which I don't agree with. Okay. I'd rather deal in reality, not pretend reality. Claiming things that aren't real, that are obviously not true. And then you have to accept it. Oh, if you don't accept this, that's my truth. Yeah, but your truth is wrong. It's a lie. So this channel doesn't deal in that. If you're into that pretend stuff, this is not going to work out in the long run for you, probably, because a lot of people that deal with the pretend truth, they're very volatile. They're highly volatile. So they can fly off the handle real fast. And it's hard to deal with people who are volatile. I know I do it. I deal with it. And I don't like to. I just say, okay, all right, whatever. Okay. When you flip them out or something minor. There is like a little sherry note here. So I got to keep that in mind. I think that's the Cutty Sark. And I think that's that sherry note. Cutty Sark Prohibition Edition. Cutty Sark PE. Now over here, there could be a wine note also. I don't exactly know what barrels are being used for White Horse, and it is within the realm of possibility that they could be aging some of it in sherry casks or, Marsala. They do that sometimes with wine, Scotch aging Marsala cask. That's from Sicily, and but they have wine that they sell in the United States, and they call it Marsala, but it'd be from like New York State. Taylor Marsala. Well, okay, it's not really Marsala, and it's not really sherry, but the United States is not part of that, really, that origin classification thing. Like we have wines that are called champagne here. They're not from Champagne, France. But anyway, bourbon, yeah, if it's not from the United States, it's not supposed to be called bourbon. But some countries are not part of that protocol either, so they'll call it bourbon, but it might be made in, Taiwan, Republic of China. They might say, well, it's bourbon to us. They wouldn't be able to sell it in the USA. They would just change the label, call it Taiwan, Taiwanese whiskey or whatever. So an aroma is kind of funny, here the aroma's a little funny, I'm not sure. Now you would think 100 proof versus 80 proof, it should be a sure shot, right? 90% alcohol versus, excuse my mind, 50%, I caught that right off, but 50% alcohol versus 40%. It should be a clear and present difference, 50% versus 40%. But now maybe not on the aroma. Let's go with the taste. Chuz. That seemed pretty strong, man. That's pretty hefty. It's got a burn. Oh, it burns. It burns. That's regular old tap water. But it's got that burn. It's got that oak, deep oak. And it's sherry, ex-sherry. So you can make sherry in America. As they're telling you on the Cutty Sark website, they use an ex-American sherry cask. But typically you would think it'd be coming from Shiraz, from Spain, Spanish. But that style, that whole ideology of making sherry has come to the United States. So then they do it here. Either it was English people that had experience with Spanish sherry, because England and Spain so common trading partners, or actual Spanish immigrants, like Louisiana with so many Spanish immigrants straight from Spain. These are Iberians, or from the Canary Islands, the Isleños down in St. Bernard and Plaquemines Parish. So they brought those techniques with them. Yeah, this is much milder, and so you can tell it's the White Horse, and I'm gonna call it White Horse. It is. Okay. And there's a little peat and a little smoke. And it's so minimal though. Now, I wanted to interject last night, but I didn't. I said the video is going to go on an hour, at least an hour anyway, so I didn't want to make it a longer discussion. And like my friend David said, you cutting us off. I said, I have to cut people off because there's only a certain amount of length you can make the video. And then people, including the viewers, even the participants, be tired of doing it. So we try to keep it an hour or less. Doesn't always work out. But he was saying, because like Claude was saying, well, I don't like the smoky Scotch and the peaty Scotch, which probably half the Scotch drinkers don't like. And David was saying, well, everybody doesn't appreciate a true Scotch, which would be peaty and smoky. And that's when I wanted to jump in and say, well, hold on. Because there's no such thing as that. you can't say, well, peaty and smoky is a true Scotch, and the mild and bready is not the true, because they're all different styles of Scotch. Okay, so it's not correct to say that. You could have a whole lifetime Scotch whiskey experience, blended or single malt, up to you. But it may never bring in peat or smoke. Peat or smoke may never play a factor if it's the Speysides and the Highlands and all. They don't have that. So, but if you caught up in the peat and the smoke, then you could do that and never cross over to the other side. So, or you could do both, like me. I like both. So, but you got to watch that. It'd be like saying, well, if you don't like bitter beer, you're not a real beer drinker. Well, what are you talking about? There's a whole world of beers that are either hardly bitter or not bitter at all, and they're quality products, and people drink them and they love them. I rather the bitter beers personally. To me, that's where it's at. I like the bitter beers. Yeah, bitter beer. That's a personal preference thing. It is not a definitive appreciation of beer thing. You get me? I just soon never drink another flavored beer. I know people are into that. That's like a big deal with people. Like, oh, it's got strawberry puree in it. This one's made with coffee. This one got cocoa nibs, and this one got coconut and everything in it. Fine. That's fine. You can't accuse a person of drinking that's not a true beer drinker. I mean, they're drinking true beer or beer-based products. I mean, it's what they a true beer drinker. I mean, they're drinking true beer or beer-based products. I mean, it's what they want to drink. It's not my kind of approach, but that's fine. So it runs both ways, or it can run together, but it's not mutually exclusive. It's not like, well, if you like flavored beer, you're not a real beer drinker. But if you like bitter beer, you're limiting yourself, and you're not a true beer connoisseur. It's all about your personal preference. It's really not reflective of the quality of the product. When I do beer reviews, I try to focus on, is it a quality product or not? It's usually not too hard to figure that out. That usually comes out pretty fast. Nastiness will come through like right off the bat, usually, or it'll evidence itself within seconds, not minutes. And we had a lousy one, boy. Let me tell you, and we both agree. We don't agree on a whole lot all the time, beer, wine, and liquor. I'm talking about my friend David and I. But on this one, we agreed. It was like terrible, and we could not drink it. I said, I'm not drinking it. You can drink it. I told him, you could drink it if you want. If you get sick later, go ahead. I'm not touching it. I took a few sips. I said, I'm putting it on the counter. This stuff is tainted. It's rancid. There's something wrong with it. And it wasn't even out of date. I said, but boy, how could you know? They don't put dates on these cans, half these craft breweries. Which some people get upset about when I say that. Like, how dare you say that? You're just a shill for corporate companies worrying about dates. I said, no, that's invalid to say that, because anybody could put a date on a can or a bottle. I don't see why you couldn't. If you can't put dates in cans, get out the business. Just quit, exit. Do like Platform and get deplatformed. Platform Brewing. Did they put dates? I don't know. I never tried any of their beers. I know they went away in 2023. They still produce 3 of their beers. Anheuser-Busch produces them, but in their own breweries. The Platform is dead. Okay, I just thought I'd bring that up as an aside. These 2 products are obviously quality products. They're not high hat. They're not top shelf, or they're not exquisite or anything like that. But they're quality. They're solid. They're nice. I mean, I don't know what you would think about that pretty strong sherry experience with the Cutty Sark Prohibition Edition. That could turn you off, especially if you say, oh, I've had sherry before and I can't stand it. It's gross. It's a type of wine I cannot stand, and so forth. Well, yeah, then don't drink it. Do not drink it. But if you like that kind of thing, You might love it because it gives it a very interesting fruit quality. Is it the real McCoy? It is. It is the real McCoy. It is the real McCoy. Would I rather drink this than the regular Cutty Sark? I think I would rather drink this than the regular Cutty Sark. But Cutty Sark's cool. It's nice. It's got that peatiness. So I don't know whose single malts they're bringing in. You could probably look at the Martiniquaise website and get an idea. But that really wouldn't tell you because these companies trade with each other. So, yes, forget that. Consider that a retraction because that's not a reliable statement. So let's take another sip of the White Horse. It's smooth. It's easy. There's that scintilla of smoke and scintilla of peat. And I mean, it's a scintilla. It's just like a little wisp of it, a glimmer of it. I said in earlier videos, a glimmer. So don't think you're going to say, this calendar looks like it's not even, but it is even. Well, not really. Oh, well, it's just a calendar. Sometimes a calendar is just a calendar. All right. It's got people wearing coats. Why are they wearing coats and sweaters and it's middle of summer? I hope they're in the mountains. Okay. You wouldn't be wearing that here. Maybe in December. The heat cannot be beat. It's in the 80s. It was in the 80s overnight. That was how cool it got, 80. But I do like White Horse. It has been a fun experience doing the taste challenges. Hasn't won every challenge, certainly not. For example, like today. But it definitely hasn't been beaten down, pushed around, and disrespected. It's held its own. It battled. It did quite well. There were a few instances where I couldn't even tell it apart from other products. Got it confused. So, and that does happen from time to time. I do think I've covered all of them. I don't believe I've overlooked any of them, but that's happened before. If I do, I'll backtrack on it. But I think I got it all covered. Now, that brings us to the end of whiskey for the time being. And now it's on to brandy, which is like you could call it grape whiskey, like whiskey made out of grapes. Now, the brandy people are going to say, the brandy fans, cognac fans, going to say, wrong, you got it backwards. Whiskey is brandy made out of grain. Whiskey is brandy made out of grain. You know, brandy is way older than whiskey and all that. Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll say that whiskey is brandy made out of grain. But it's the same principle, you understand, distilled product. So now we're going into the world of grape. And brandy does not have to be made from grapes. Typically is. It can be made from apple. You know, there's a company in New Jersey, Laird's, and they're famous for their Apple Jack. They call it Apple Jack. It's apple brandy. I've never tried it. There's a whole number of them at the liquor stores around here. There's about 3 or 4 different Laird's that I could get a hold of if I cared to, of their Apple Jack, apple brandy. Some people make blackberry brandy, but you see that's mostly brandy flavored with blackberry, like a blackberry syrup, like a puree or a syrup extract of it. So that's not, it's not like they're taking pure blackberries and making brandy. You could do it, just might cost $200 a bottle because it'd be so hard to get all those, you know, blackberries a little bit more problematic. But anyway, enough of that. So get ready for tomorrow. Classic Club VSOP versus VSOP, both from Buffalo Trace, Sazerac. So I think they're both made in Frankfort, Kentucky at the Buffalo Trace Distillery. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.